The FIFA World Cup was recently played here in North America, and as the biggest international tournament in football or soccer, it got the attention of pretty much the entire world. For those who don't know, I'm Mexican, so having the tournament hosted across Mexico, the US, and Canada had its ups and downs from a fan's perspective. I'm not gonna get too deep into that. I just wanted to give you some context about what this tournament meant to my country. As Mexican fans, we completely rallied behind our national team. And yes, once again, we got knocked out in the round of 16, which has historically been our ceiling at the World Cup. But this time felt different. For the first time in a while, there was this feeling that we actually had what it took to go further. Our players put together a pretty respectable tournament despite all the problems behind the scenes and the way Mexican football is managed, especially when it comes to the national team. We managed to set a precedent. We showed that going further is possible. Now, if you made it this far into the intro, you might be wondering, what the hell does any of this had to do with Minecraft and gameplays and whatever? Well, not much actually, but watching my national team perform the way they did got me thinking about something that I believe can be useful to you, because you can learn something from pretty much anything. So while I play Minecraft and build a world, let's think about this. Yeah, we have to take the L, although by the time you're watching this, it might already be old news. Maybe you're watching this a year or two later, in which case this whole thing is probably completely irrelevant to you. But at the time, Mexico had won 4 games in a row without conceding a single goal, and then we faced a world class team like England, and that's where our World Cup journey came to an end, empty handed. But even so, Mexico broke both individual and team records, ended several losing streaks, and more importantly, showed the best version of the national team we've seen in years. So, my takeaway from all of this is pretty simple. We've taken steps in the right direction, and if we can keep what's working while fixing what's not, we'll hopefully see even better results in the future. And this is where I want to connect this whole sporting event to today's topic. In sports, no matter what sport we're talking about, there's only one winner at the end of the tournament. But in life, there isn't just one way to win. And when you're that close to winning but you don't get the result you wanted, like in this case of the national team I just told you about, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not making progress. Quite the opposite. When you get that close to winning, it means you've already developed what it takes to put yourself in that position. Yes, losing a final hurts. Getting eliminated right before reaching your goal hurts, but sometimes people don't give enough credit to the performance itself. Because if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, no team and no person wins all the time. In fact, even the best ones only win a fraction of the time. Think about it this way. Maybe you're at a job where you're giving it your best, learning new skills and growing professionally, but you don't get promoted every single year. Your income doesn't double every year, and yet you're doing well. You're becoming better at what you do, you're moving forward, and if we only judged your life by results, we could look at every year without a promotion and say, well, you failed again. But that's obviously not true. If you look at your day to day life and compare yourself to the person you used to be, you can see the progress, the development, the growth. So, how could you possibly call that failure? While someone else might look at the exact same life and call it successful? Simple. It's all about perspective. You see what I mean? So, with all of that in mind, let's imagine we're looking at life like a sports competition. By definition, there's only one winner, which means everyone else is a loser. Would being part of that group really be so bad? We've been taught that failure is something bad, something we should avoid. So, naturally, finding ourselves on the losing side frustrates us. That's normal. But if you ask me, you shouldn't avoid failure. You should seek it out again and again. That's because failure might just be the greatest teacher you'll ever have. Losing teaches you a lot. The obvious lesson is that you learn what not to do so you can try again and do it better next time. But beyond that, every failure builds resilience. It teaches you how to adapt. And sometimes the best way to understand this is through a completely stupid example from your own life. So let me tell you one from mine. When I first learned how to drive, my biggest problem wasn't merging onto a busy highway, it wasn't parallel parking, it wasn't any of the classic mistakes you'd expect from a beginner driver. No, my biggest mistake was locking my keys inside the car. And I did it all the damn time. I get out of the car, close the door, lock it, and then realize my keys were still sitting inside. The locksmith basically became my best friend. There were even times when the trunk was the only thing I left unlocked, so I have to climb into my own car through the trunk. Those were probably some of the moments in my life when I felt most like an idiot. Anyway, I know, bro. I'm jumping from soccer to failure to gardening to getting locked out of my car. These topics seem completely unrelated, but I promise I have a point. After screwing this up so many times, I eventually decided this is never happening again. Maybe you can't relate to this. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, bro, that's so stupid, I would never do that. And that's fair. But for someone as forgetful as me, I had to come up with a system. So every time I got out of the car, sorry, I put my keys in my pocket and then I do this ridiculous little power pose and say, all right, keys are secured every single time. Eventually, my brain started associating putting my keys away with that stupid pose, and it became automatic. I stopped locking my keys inside the car, and now I know this is a ridiculous example, but the principle is the same. You can use this exact idea to break almost any streak of small failures you're experiencing in your own life. I'm not exactly the most creative person in the world, so I'll leave that part to you. Think about your everyday life. What's something you keep messing up? What's the behavior you want to change? And what simple positive stimulus could you attach to the new behavior? Maybe it's a gesture, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's a song, maybe it's something completely ridiculous. It doesn't matter. What matters is creating an association your brain can recognize. I call it the mechanics of simplicity. Sometimes changing your life doesn't require some complicated strategy. Sometimes you just need one stupidly simple thing repeated enough times. If you really think about this, you'll probably agree with me on something. How you do one thing is how you do everything. If you keep your room clean, everything has its place, and you're generally organized, chances are that same order shows up in other areas of your life. There are always exceptions, of course, but for the most part, that's how an organized mind works. On the other hand, if you constantly put off doing your homework, cleaning your house, or taking care of the things you need to do, chances are you're also putting things off in other areas of your life because procrastination is a habit. And if you're always late everywhere you go, eventually you'll be late for your own life. Think about it like a football team winning a championship. They don't win because of one incredible game. They win because they string together one good result after another throughout the entire tournament. And as a person, you work the same way. Your positive results come from stacking those small victories over time. It can start with something as simple as improving your routines one step at a time. Remember the mechanics of simplicity. One small victory a day repeated for long enough uh, can lead to a completely different life. Here's another example. Let's say you decide to go for a run today after months or even years of barely exercising. You're probably not going to perform very well. You're going to get tired, your body is going to tell you to stop, but that's okay. Taking that first step is already a small victory. Then you try again another day. It feels difficult, but now you're starting to understand your limits. You're learning what your body can handle, and that's your second victory. Then you do it again and again, little by little, day by day. Your body adapts to the workload. You become stronger, you can go farther, your limits start getting bigger and bigger, and all of that happens because you've been collecting small victories. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of repeating good actions that are aligned with the person you want to become. And once you see it this way, you'll notice that doing simple things consistently applies to almost every area of your life. A thought creates an emotion creates an action creates a habit creates a result, and a result creates a life. Now, all of this sounds really nice, doesn't it? But why should you listen to me? I'm just some random guy on the internet who plays Minecraft. Well, first of all, you have nothing to lose and potentially a lot to gain by actually testing these ideas for yourself. And second, you're not really taking my word for it. You're taking the word of people who have spent years studying this stuff. Psychologist K. Anders Ericsson spent much of his career studying how ordinary people could achieve extraordinary levels of performance through structured training. His research suggested that expert performance depends far less on some magical innate talent and much more on deliberate practice, constant feedback, and proper guidance. This eventually became associated with the idea that becoming an expert requires around 10,000 hours of practice. That number was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers, which, by the way, is a book I've been meaning to read. But there's an important detail people often miss. They weren't talking about mindlessly repeating something for 10,000 hours, they were talking about deliberate practice. In other words, you practice with intention, you identify your mistakes, you correct them, you get feedback, and then you try again. Which brings us right back to what I was saying earlier about going from failure to failure and improving along the way. That means stepping outside your comfort zone and constantly getting feedback that helps you identify where you need to improve. Think about runners. Whether they realize it or not, most serious runners keep track of things like their pace, distance, and time because what gets measured can be improved. You can see how you are performing and start adjusting the variables you actually have control over: your shoes, your hydration, your recovery, the time of day you run. All of those things can affect your performance, and by consistently practicing while adjusting those things, you gradually move toward a better version of the activity. Once again, this applies to pretty much any discipline or area of your life. Obviously, the results will vary. Natural ability matters, so does the amount of time you have available, and so does consistency. But you are not competing against everyone else. You are competing against who you were yesterday. So don't worry about how fast someone else is progressing. Focus on your own trajectory. These ideas have helped me in different areas of my life, but if I have to reduce everything productivity gurus talk about to a single word, it would be focus. Because everything we've talked about so far leads directly to that idea. Think about it. Where you put your energy and attention is where you're going to see results. It's not rocket science, it's simple logic. Energy plus attention gives us focus. Think of a laser. A laser is just light concentrated into a single point. The energy isn't necessarily greater, it's simply focused with incredible precision. And that concentrated energy can do things ordinary light can't. That's what focus can do for you. And here's the best part about repeating the formulas that lead to success. Eventually, they become second nature. Noel Birch, an academic and educator, described a learning model involving four stages of competence. And this is where things get really interesting. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. You don't know something and you don't even know that you don't know it. This is where you're just starting out. You're bad at something, but you don't yet understand the full extent of what you don't know. And ironically, this stage can sometimes come with a lot of confidence. That's where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. It's a cognitive bias in which people with limited knowledge or skill can overestimate how much they actually know. And if you don't recognize the gap, it becomes very difficult to learn. The second stage is conscious incompetence. Now you know you're bad at something, and that's progress. You can finally see your weaknesses, you understand how complicated the skill actually is, and you can see the gap between where you are and where the experts are. This is where a lot of people get frustrated because now you're aware of every mistake you're making. At this point, you either quit or you keep going. Then we have the third stage, conscious competence. This is my personal favorite. If you're taking notes, write down that this is the favorite stage of the guy in the Minecraft video. Because if you make it past the previous stage, this is where things start getting excited. You've been hitting your goals, you can actually see yourself improving, but you're still on the learning curve. You still have to consciously think about what you're doing. You can perform the skill, but you have to pay attention to the process. You start unlocking achievements, but they still require your full attention. You have the skill, you just don't have the fluency yet. And honestly, I think this is the most fun stage. Finally, we have unconscious competence. Finally, you reach the last stage. You can do the thing naturally. You don't have to consciously think about every little step anymore. You just know what you're doing. The skill has become second nature. Think about someone who speaks a second language fluently, a musician improving on stage, or an athlete pulling off an incredible play without consciously thinking through every movement. That's what mastery starts to look like. Something that once required your full attention now happens almost automatically. By this point, I've told you that failure is the greatest teacher there is. We've talked about productivity theories, and the thread connecting all of this is the way we use trial and error as part of the learning curve. You fail, you learn, you adjust the process, you optimize it, and eventually, what once required conscious effort can become almost automatic. At first, you probably won't see the results, and people watching from the outside might point that out. They might laugh, they might call you a failure. It doesn't matter. Stay focused on your goal. Eventually, you'll gain experience. But remember, repeating the same thing over and over isn't progress if nothing changes. There's no point in doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. Instead, you adjust, you experiment, you improve your formula, sorry. You keep testing until you find what works for you, and that's what turns failure into success. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Don't run away from failure. Failure is the price of admission for success. That's right. Success is bought with losses. The more of them you collect, the more you learn how to win. So fail, and fail epically. Fail with enthusiasm. Find 1,000 different ways not to do something until you finally figure out how to do it right. Use every attempt as fuel for your goals. Because you know what fertilizer plants grow best with? Manure. Yeah, sometimes the best growth comes from shit. So don't be afraid of failure. Develop thick skin. Come back stronger. Come back wiser. Because that version of yourself, the one capable of accomplishing what they set their mind to, is probably only a few attempts away. And remember, you don't throw away a second place medal. You hang it right next to the first place one. Because that second place finish is what helped you get there. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you for letting me spend these few minutes with you today. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me something that could help the community we are building, or let me know what topics you'd like me to talk about next. You can also check out my social media and my Spanish channel if you want more content. And once again, thank you for spending your time with me. I'll see you in the next video. Viva Mexico!